So I was sent this beginner FPV kit by BETAFPV, and in this video I'm going to take a step back in time in my head to 2020 when I first started FPV, and if I would have bought something like this to learn how to fly. If you've chosen to click on this video, you're probably a beginner with little to no knowledge of what options there are out on the market for FPV other than the DJI Avata series of drones, which are great if you can afford them. As a starter kit, they will cost you around $1,200 for the goggles, controller and drone, not to mention a few hundred extra on top for extra batteries and of course DJI Care Refresh, which you will definitely need if you're starting FPV and starting with the Avata drones. If however you're looking to dip your toes in and I'm not sure if this hobby is for you and therefore don't want to spend too much, then this drone kit, the Aquila 16 by BETAFPV, might be the one for you. Coming in at just $250 for everything you need to start flying, this can be the perfect drone for you to learn, crash and repeat before you step up to more expensive DJI gear. So inside the kit, you get the Aquila 16 drone, a Light Radio 2 SC transmitter that has Express LRS 3.0 receiver, a pair of VR03 goggles with a built-in DVR, two 1100 mAh 1S batteries, a charger, extra props and a carry case. Essentially everything you need to get flying, no extra purchases required. The VR03 goggles are basic but effective. The built-in DVR means you can record your flights and review them later. This is great for spotting mistakes and sharing your FPV journey, but you probably wouldn't use that footage for anything more than that. So as I mentioned, the Light Radio 2 SC controller runs Express LRS, which is one of the best radio link protocols out there. And as an added bonus, having this cheap radio as part of the kit, you can connect it to your PC, use it as a joystick for simulators like Liftoff, which was the one that I used to start, or Velocidrone, which is another great one that I've used, which means you can practice for hours without having to risk your drone. So all in all, for beginners, this is huge. Like, no hunting for the right battery connector, no mismatched chargers. It's literally a grab and go solution. All right, let's actually see how quickly this is to set up and fly. So, goggles on, switched on, radio's on. Let's stick the battery in. Start it up. Okay, I got signal straight away. Record button on. Let's put this on the floor. I'm gonna go for M mode, mid. So that's manual mode mid, and arm. Alright, let's go. The Aquila 16 runs on 1S batteries with up to 8 minutes of flight time is what BETAFPV say. I've got more 6.5 to 7 minutes, but that just might be the way I fly per battery. And the VTX, the video transmission system, pushes up to 350 milliwatts, which basically means you get a bit of extra added power range, giving a video transmission range of around 200 meters when you push it up to that 350 milliwatts. And the frame is very lightweight, but it is reinforced, so it can take some bigger crashes. So the drone itself looks very much like a smaller, cheaper Avata drone with prop guards and a push-in battery design that clips nicely into place. That locks in on the side. Okay, it's pretty cool. It's one of those batteries like the Avata that kind of just sticks in place rather than needing a battery strap, with no dangling battery straps required. Now, I'd say the great thing about this kit is it really is plug and play, ready to fly. The battery goes in, you turn the radio on and the goggles on, everything is connected straight away, and you just flick on this switch to start the motors. It's as easy as that, and I really wish it was as easy as that to start flying when I first started, but I had all sorts of trouble getting my beginner drone to connect to my radio and my goggles, firmware updates, all that kind of stuff when I first started. So this is very nice in my opinion. Now the drone itself is slightly larger than a typical tiny Whoop at 16mm props. However, this does give it more stability indoors and outdoors in my experience. BETAFPV have actually designed this kit for progression. So you get 3 flight modes: normal, sport and manual. And also within these 3 modes, you get slow, medium and fast. Normal mode adds altitude hold and hover assist, almost like training wheels for FPV. And I think this is a great mode to start in, as even if you already know how to fly manual from the simulator, many hours in the simulator, the feeling of having goggles on and flying is very different to flying line of sight. So just to get used to that in the initial stages, I'd advise starting in normal mode, but don't stay in it for too long. Going up to the next level from that is sport mode, which removes some of the assistance that normal mode has, which gives you more freedom, but is still forgiving on the controls. And after that, of course, you do have manual mode, the holy grail, the mode you want to be getting to fly full FPV. It is also known as full acro. This is where you experience true FPV freestyle flying and want to be practicing in this mode most of the time if you can. So quickly going back to normal mode, in my experience, it is super stable, almost like flying a DJI drone, but with FPV goggles. This is N mode. So with N mode, I don't even really need the glasses, I can just do it line of sight. Forward. There's the drone. Just hovers in the air, so it's pretty easy to get started. And then you could just stick the goggles on and start seeing how it looks to look through goggles and fly at the same time, which is a bit of a weird experience when you first start. Indoors, it hovers very confidently without drifting all over the place. I was actually pleasantly surprised with this because the DJI Avata does the same thing. I didn't think it would be as good, but it is really, really good. And outdoors, it does handle light wind fairly well, but keep in mind it's still a 1S drone, so the gusty days, it's not for that. It will be pushed around all over the place, but that is to be expected with a lightweight drone, a tiny whip drone like this. In manual mode, you can do a little bit of freestyle, the odd roll and flip dive, but don't expect 5-inch performance because it just cannot, it's not powerful enough to recover and to, you know, pull it off the ground. If you do a flip and you are close to the ground, you're more likely to crash into the ground rather than be able to recover like you would with a powerful 5-inch drone. Some pilots also do say it feels a bit heavy for a 1S setup, and it can wobble if you punch the throttle up too high. But considering it is built for beginners, it actually does a great job balancing stability and fun. So the Aquila 16 has an analog transmission system, which was what was used before DJI introduced digital, and it works fine except for when there is signal interference. The view will become staticky like an old school television that would use those antennas that stick out the back, whereas digital usually stays pretty clean up until a certain threshold, and then it will just degrade rapidly by becoming pixelated. In any case, analog can be harder in my experience to fly for this reason, as the static can make it hard to see smaller, finer objects in the frame. So the Aquila 16 is challenging to fly for this reason, and also because, well, it is very, very cheap, and to make it cheap, they've had to also make the camera quality cheap, and that's why you get a camera that's not the easiest to see through unless you are in good, consistently lit conditions with not too many high dynamic range areas. Generally, the most expensive component inside an FPV drone will be the camera and the video transmission module, otherwise known as the VTX. And to make this kit affordable, this part of the Aquila 16 is also a pretty cheap one. The advantage of this is, however, it will make you appreciate so much when you do eventually upgrade to digital, as it's much clearer in the goggles. However, that being said, it is still very flyable and, most importantly, good for a beginner to learn on in the right conditions. So how does it stack up against other beginner kits? For example, let's compare it to the DJI Avata. Well, it's not even close. The Avata 2 is more advanced in every way, but also way, way more expensive. The Aquila 16 is very much a low risk entry into FPV versus other Whoop kits like maybe the Cetus Pro, also from BETAFPV. The Aquila 16 gives longer flight times and more stable hovering. The Cetus feels lighter and a bit more agile, but has shorter flights. So if endurance and that steady progression are your priorities, the Aquila 16 takes the win, in my opinion. Overall, the main advantages of this kit are it is a all-in-one kit which requires no extra purchases. It does have a long flight time per battery for a micro quad. As I mentioned before, around 7 to 8 minutes. It does have that DVR in the goggles for recording your footage. And it's got that easy progression through the flight modes with that normal, speed, manual, slow, medium and fast modes, and a very durable frame. Honestly, it's pretty impressive. It's one of the most complete beginner kits I've seen in this price range. The durability of the drone has been great so far, as I've crashed it multiple times and it's managed to survive light to medium crashes very, very well. So it's pretty solid, which is definitely what you need from a beginner kit. There's nothing worse than starting off your journey, breaking your drone and having to get it fixed. It's probably the reason why many people quit in the beginning. So having that durability is fantastic to just keep going and keep learning. So overall, is the BETAFPV Aquila 16 worth it for FPV newbies? I'd say yes. I'd say that's who it's aimed at. If you want a simple, forgiving, all-in-one kit to get you off the ground. It's not perfect, but it teaches you the fundamentals without overwhelming you and also without breaking the bank. For around $250, it's a solid gateway into the FPV world. I think if I was back there in 2020 when I first started during a pandemic, when I was not able to go outside too often, then I would have loved to have something like this to practice on in and around the house to gain a good understanding of how to fly an FPV quad, rather than starting with a bigger 5-inch drone like I did and having to wait to be able to go outside and practice, as well as making it more expensive and frustrating to replace parts after crashes to get back up in the air. If you're buying the Aquila 16 thinking that it will be your forever drone, it just won't be. It's a stepping stone. It's a training tool to get you into FPV. I think it's a great start with this to learn the basics, then upgrade to a more powerful freestyle or Cinewhoop drone later. That is the natural FPV journey, in my opinion. If you are looking to then also get into digital and see what that progression looks like, getting to the DJI world of drones, then do go ahead and watch this video. It's a mammoth long video that will just get you started straight into that world. If that's something you would prefer, do go and check that one out. It's got loads of really good information in there on how you can fly FPV to the best of your ability and get the most amazing cinematic footage possible. Definitely highly recommend you go and watch that video. And thank you so much for watching again. Take care and I'll see you in the next video.